My presentation is starting where Lenny left off, or is kind of based on that. I called it Representing a Production Process, and representing text production is basically the genetic edition with textual digital scholarly editions. We've seen the apparatus kind at the macro and microgenesis, and I'm just going to go over that shortly again, some examples. So this is a very simple example where you have three clearly defined versions of one text in different times, and then you can just do a parallel view. This is again the example I did for censorship. So you see how the final text on the right side evolved from a much longer text that was then slowly reduced. A more complex example would be the recently released beta of the Faust edition, where you see that they had to use some abstractions because there were so many witnesses and it goes over such a long time. So they made a visualization, and then you can zoom in kind of to a text, and then you can see what part of the text existed at what time frame. You can zoom in further, and then you can see all the different text witnesses and what text was on them, and then finally you get to the text and you still have an apparatus here. So that is an example of a very complex textual genesis. But what I want to argue is that it's still very simple in the kind of, so this is a very simplified version, I know that. So you have a time axis, and then you have some drafts and some notes and a final text. Final, of course, in quotes, because there's been discussion about that. So you're basically modeling a temporal change between different stages, versions of written text, usually by the same author. So what I want to do now is represent a stage production, because I now have contact with the people from the theater collection. So for them, the final text is not a written text, but of course a performance piece. So if you would do an analog to that, you will have the first part would be the script done by some author, and the next part would be a huge bunch of notes, sketches, rewrites, models, props, costumes, and they are all done by a group of people. So it's the director, the art department, the stage department, and whatnot. And then the final text, so to say, would be a performance in space and time. So that could be shown by video files or by a 3D world. And now, in contrast to what I just said about the textual genesis, you here have a temporal change over various media types by multiple authors, resulting in a performance that has itself a temporal axis. And then I showed that on the far right side, that because the resulting text itself has a temporal axis. So this is kind of the issues I'm dealing with in my head right now. And I'm thinking of some solutions. So maybe you could do an analog to the parallel view that exists in textual digital scholarly editions, where you have a text window that always displays the script of a certain scene, then have a dynamic repository of documents from the production process relating to that scene. So for example, if a person would be mentioned, you would have the different drafts for the costumes, and then have a constant 3D view of what that scene would have looked like. And that would be a virtual world then. So that would be one way, is kind of adapting that digital scholarly edition approach to these different media types. I'm not sure if this will work. And the other view relates to what we did yesterday, is to have the virtual world as kind of the centerpiece, and then do the addition with annotations and overlays. So have a window, for example, that shows the text, and you have a timeline that scrolls through the different parts of the theater play, and then you have a map of the stage layout that was planned, or have clickable overlays to the costumes and so on. So I think these are the two approaches that I'm right now thinking about, and these are some questions that I ask myself and that we can hopefully discuss, and you don't have to answer them because I will plan to answer them in my PhD. So these, I mean, if you do answer them now, I will credit you, but so can the production process be edited with techniques from textual digital scholarly editions? Can those techniques be applied to different media? Can virtual worlds be then used within such an edition, which is partly a theoretical question, does it make sense, and partly a technical question? Or could virtual worlds be the framework wrapper of such an edition? So that would be the contrasting approach, approaching the whole issue from both worlds, so to say. And that's it. I'm not sure. Yeah.